Redditors who broke up with their fiancés. What made you go from wanting to spend the rest of your life with them to not wanting to be with them at all? Caught her butt naked with some random dude when we were supposed to meet up at a friend's home for a get together, and I caught her in the spare bedroom while everyone else was hanging out and drinking. Cue fludgets and find out she cheated on me up to double-digit times, and all the people at that friend's get together knew she cheated on me often. Cut off all my friends and traumatized me for a long time, but I'm better now. I'm sorry that happened to you, but none of those people were your friends or very good people. I don't know how people just stay out of it when they know someone is being cheated on. Like, the fact that you know means the cheater has basically involved you in the cheating. In those situations, I've basically given the cheater an ultimatum. You have a week to tell them, or I'm telling them. If you didn't want them to find out, then you shouldn't have involved me. There are people who I won't go out of my way to tell, but I will not lie about it to the victim if they ask. He was my best friend and I really enjoyed our relationship. Honestly, I hold no bad feelings for him, but he had a tendency to avoid communication when angry / sad / upset. At first it seemed like a minor problem I could adjust to, but the passive aggressiveness and silent treatment that he could manage for days on end started to get to me. I felt like it was a form of control. He never accepted my apologies, never apologized himself, and would just wait it out until he was ready to talk again. Then he'd just skip the fight and talk normal like it didn't happen. So basically no issue we ever had was actually addressed, and I was afraid to ever cause a confrontation because I knew it would be unresolved. It made me feel like I couldn't fully trust him, and the idea of doing that for life stopped being appealing. This is what caused my breakup the other day. After I started reading about avoidant attachment styles, I realized what was going on. It is an insecure control thing. She refused to communicate or work out relationship issues like a healthy person. Instead would deflect blame on me for trying to have converse when she wasn't feeling receptive, or for not being patient to let her be in a good headspace. It's like, dude, you can't avoid working through things and then guilt me for trying to work through them. Last thing she said was that I'm an asshole for not asking first if she was in an okay headspace to be broken up with. BC, I haven't seen it here. He relapsed on drugs and then told me all of our relationship problems were my mental health. Can also relate. I miss who I thought he was, but I don't think I've known him sober. And now he's just angry all the time. Drug users are usually two people. Who you thought he was is probably in there, but it won't matter if he doesn't clean up. Open bracket. I'm not saying you're wrong overall, but I'm going to leave this here. https://yow2 b/pi90cmxmes for any curious minds. There's a line, a fine one, but a definite line between use and abuse, recreation, addiction, and medication. The problems surrounding addiction are less about use vs abstinence, and much more about alienation and trauma, both committed upon or by the addicted person. This whole subject can be very tricky to talk about. https://yow2 b/674 between censorship and broad bias. We can't discount that addiction harms more than just the substance abuser, but we can't lump responsible users in with addicts and start blanket banning or blanket hating substances. Like all parts of nature and technology, psychoactives have their light and dark sides, but they are deeply woven into the human experience, and we have to meet reality on its own terms. She decided her future was in a different country, took our savings with her. That's sad, man. Thank God I don't have a fiancé or savings, so I'm twice as safe. She thought he said Finn and K. He spent an entire paycheck, my paycheck, on pop figures, as a gift for me when they were all his favorite characters. Took a hard look at how often this type of thing was happening and realized I didn't want to raise an adult baby. Edit for spelling. Had an ex tell me he had a surprise for me when I got home. That surprise for me turned out to be a tattoo he had wanted for some time, but it had zero to do with me at all. Took me years after the breakup to realize that he truly believed that his hobbies, likes, and desires were so wonderful that they were a gift to other people. When you broke up, did you keep the tattoo? Gotta get that pound of flesh. https n.m. Wikipedia org/wiki/the_merchant_of_Venus. She wouldn't tell me where she was all day one day, and I'm not the controlling type, but she wouldn't even answer an innocuous "what did you do today?" question. By the time this all came to a head, it turned out she was on a date with another guy. Wacky that she didn't at least try to come up with something. Lol. In my experience, some people are really bad at lying. She went through a terrible, just truly terrible mental breakdown, leading to an eventual diagnosis. I did everything I could to keep her together, but it wasn't enough. At the end of it all, I told her that I was going to stick it out. I'd do my best to work with her, but she had to listen to her doctors. She had to take all the advice she was given. She had to take her meds. She had to accept she had a mental illness, and she had to deal with it. And she didn't. So when she lost her shit, for the umpteenth time, and told me to get out and not come back, I took her up on her offer. Some people call me an asshole for that decision, but I'm not going to subject myself to 50 years of abuse and misery on behalf of someone who won't do the first thing to take care of themselves. I have severe anxiety and depression. Depending on how things are at the time, it's managed pretty well ATM with meds and other coping techniques. Covered was and is a B to my mental health. That being said, my hubby is amazing about helping me deal with my anxiety and depression. But holy shit, if I were actively not trying to manage even this, I don't know what your ex's diagnosis is, but you don't deserve to be subjected to someone who refuses to seek help for their mental health issues when it is clearly affecting you. You definitely are better off not being in that situation. When I found out he saw me merely as a way to get into the US and as a meal ticket, called off the wedding 9 days before it was supposed to happen. Best decision I ever made. More than a year later, he contacted me and attempted to blackmail me, not knowing I was by that time working as a defense contractor with a security clearance, which meant I had to report the attempt to the FBI, thus getting him and his relatives in the US into serious trouble. Ex of mine had a similar deal. Dude at a dog park asked her out, got turned down, so he used her very unique name to track down her work email. Dipshit started harassing her over her work email. Turns out, she works at a highly secure government facility and thus earned himself a home visit from Federal Investigative Services. That's what he gets. I had a boyfriend while teaching abroad in Korea for a few years. We were planning to get married, and he was going to come back to US with me. At the last second he told me he couldn't do it, and I came back alone. He's great and I love him still, but we just want different things for our future. This is an important one. While love is important in a marriage, it's not the only thing that's important. Finding a partner who can share the same or complementary goals with you is critical for long-term happiness. It's okay to love someone and not want to be life partners with them because you want different things. It's okay to love someone and not want to be life partners with them because you want different things. I caught him in 2 major lies as his mental health declined. He turned to alcohol and became verbally abusive. I told myself the next time it happens I'm out, and it did at our friend's wedding in Florida. I'm from Canada. The wedding party saw the fallout from the fight, and a bridesmaid I met an hour earlier told me he cheated at the bachelor party months earlier. After seeing his abusive nature, she decided that I needed to know the truth. The cherry on top was that the day he cheated was the day I bought my wedding dress. I know I dodged a major bullet, but that's the thing about emotional abuse. It's insidious. Deep down you know it's wrong, but you also doubt whether you're being a good partner and abandoning someone in need. I've moved on, and I'm much happier. I wake up every day, and I'm thankful it's over. I'm almost done my PhD as well, so that's lovely. Edit. Classic. I went to sleep and this blew up overnight, but thank you all so much for your kind words and awards. I hope you all have a beautiful day. F yeah, be the doctor. He tapped my phone, landline, and put a tracker on my car, and spyware on my laptop. Oh, and cut my brakes. Just a little. Just the tip of assassination attempts. He broke the first engagement. We were very young and he broke it off because his friends didn't like me and convinced him to break up. We got back together a bit later and resumed the engagement like idiots, but with a new ring, cause that made it better somehow. 6 months later I broke it off because it dawned on me that if he's willing to dump me because his buddies don't like me, what's marriage or babies going to be like? My mom had told me once that love was when the money is tight and they turn the lights off. Will you feel strong enough to get through it with me? Broke it off for good when I realized there's no way I saw him as my partner I wanted to face life with. When things got hard, he wasn't going to be anything but a child about it and I would be alone. He was engaged and married sometime later and ended up exactly as I thought. They divorced and he was remarried in a year, divorced in another 2 or 3. He was in love with the idea of being married, not actual marriage. Not a crazy drama story, but that's it. Not a crazy drama story because it's a very real story. Glad your mom gave you good advice on that front and that you took it. He sexually assaulted at least one of my friends and possibly 2. Whoa, WTF. Hopefully there was charges laid. That wasn't what the women involved wanted. So there were not. Ultimately their choice. OMG, I'm so sorry. How devastating. She changed in ways I didn't like after I proposed. I brought it up on numerous occasions. She mocked me, denied it, and made lame excuses. I have 1 divorce under my belt already. I can't go through that again. Eater, I'm eternally grateful this behavior shift happened after the proposal and not the wedding. I'm guessing you're asking because this is relevant in your life. No one here can help you figure it out, but there is a saying I like, choose your regret. People show their true colors when they feel like they have secured your love and commitment. After we got into an argument because I didn't like how he joked about me, he said I need to change and be less sensitive. It's just a joke. I asked to compromise. I'll try to be less sensitive and he should try and make less jokes like that. He complained saying he can't change. He can't filter his jokes just for me. I realized that was how our relationship will be if we got married, with me being the only one who needs to adjust to him and him never willing to compromise. People show their true colors when they feel like they have secured your love and commitment. My dad says that whenever his sister started dating a new guy she turned into a completely different person. Started acting like the perfect potential wife/future mother. Sadly she was too dumb, his words, to keep up the act until after the wedding. Once they proposed she went back to being lazy and demanding and eventually all 3 ran for the hills. I was fresh out of high school and just found out I was pregnant. Getting married seemed like a good next step until he became extremely abusive. Took me a while, but I finally got away from him for good. He ended up going to prison for murder a few years later. Dodged a bullet with that one. Wow, way to go you for being strong. That can't have been easy. She told me she would tell her friends I have a small DK if I don't hang out with her dad more. Well, now I'm curious about how they're even remotely correlated. We got together in our early 20s and engaged a few years later. I called it off when I realized we didn't share a vision for the future and I wasn't willing to compromise or ask her to. Hurt like hell, but I'm so glad I did it. I don't actually think I wanted to be with her forever. It just kind of happened before I knew I could shape my life and be happy. There were lots of other reasons we wouldn't have worked, looking back, but that one was enough. This just happened to me a couple weeks ago. I broke out with my ex because she wanted to marry and buy a house by the end of the year and I didn't feel ready to do it. Talked to her about and she said I might not be the one and I agreed. It's been tough, but I know it's for the best. Really sorry that happened to you, my dude. Sounds like it was really shitty. Hopefully you're doing alright and you're building the life you want. 3. He told me you wouldn't marry me if you knew who I really was, let alone like me. Somehow, still there. Q. Trip to high cliff where he said his cousin's fiancé disappeared and fell off a different cliff after she allegedly told him it was over. Immediately after, he got me preggers on purpose. He broke the protection and held me on the bed by my throat when I told him, choking me and demanding I be happy about it. Either he really wanted to freak me out, or was a legit psychopath. Nevertheless, I was out like a trout in a drought. Wanting to freak you out by choking you is psychopathic. He changed a lot after we were engaged. Not pulling his weight financially or around the house. Put an offer on a house without even asking me. That was about an hour away from where it made sense for us to live. My job, my family etc. Not to mention I had never even seen the home before he made the offer. Told me that he didn't want to have children ever. First time I was hearing of that in 5 years, because if we were to divorce he'd have to pay me child support. His true colors came out the last 3 months of our relationship for sure. Definitely dodged a huge bullet with that one. Part of me thinks that a big reason we even have the engagement period is to see if the person flips their ass before we get married. See what craziness comes out before tying all the knots. Your 30-day free trial has now expired. No joke, my parents got married after 6 weeks of knowing each other, had a terrible marriage, and are finally living happily in separate apartments. I was going to be the black sheep of her very religious family for the rest of my life. I'm imperfect, but no more than most. I just don't believe what their family believed, and even though I won her affections and spent years trying to earn trust with everyone, I was always going to be a pariah, and it weighed too much on me. When I met their family, no way in hell was that going to be the rest of my life. Can you elaborate? How were they like? Probably all played by one actor, with lots of farting. In some countries, it's considered a compliment. He wanted kids and I didn't. 9 years together. That is why it is one of the first things I discuss. First date with my current BF. Told him I hated children and will never want them. He told me he doesn't want to get married. Deal. And it is something to talk about regularly, as it can change. I was with my ex for 5 years. We agreed we didn't want children, but not for the same reasons. And in the last 6 months of our relationship, I overheard him talking about adoption etc. Had to end the relation. Well, for that and other stuffs, we did talk about it. I was no kids from the start, but we were high school sweethearts and I guess he thought I would grow out of it. I didn't and had to end a wonderful relationship. It's been 15 years now, he has 2 beautiful children, and I'm happily married with a wonderful man who also doesn't want children. I left my fiancé, got engaged at 18 after 6 mths dating. He was 2 years older and claimed to be the mature one, but couldn't hold down a job. Lied every time he left one. I paid for everything but he cried to me that our life was so expensive, he only paid for his hobbies. At that point he was working somewhere I arranged. Basically a pathetic excuse of a person who wouldn't take responsibility for himself. And it took me growing up to realize what a shit show it truly was. So nothing too dramatic. I just learned it wasn't supposed to be like that. Best decision of your life. I was engaged to a woman who I wanted to spend my life with. There was no doubt about it. I work out of town often, and she starts acting different. I came home early to try to figure out what was wrong and fix the issues. She then told me that she had cheated on me. It took me several days of thinking what to do before I decided I had to break up with her. I was still going to be working out of town and I wouldn't have had that trust there anymore. It's been over a year and I'm still not sure I made the right choice. 10,000% the right choice, brother. She did it once, she will do it again, you're better off. It quickly deteriorated after I began to see that she was deeply narcissistic and the relationship became even more toxic and emotionally abusive. I remember picking her up from the airport and she proceeded to spend the whole 30 minutes drive home screaming at me because I couldn't fit the image of what she wanted me to be. That was the moment I realized that I would be spending my life with someone who had the audacity to treat me with such little respect. At the time I was too broken to realize it though, so I spent another 10 months there as it got worse. I got really sick. Everything from a bad sinus infection to strep throat to shingles, all at age 25 no less. I was trying to build up the emotional strength to leave, and thankfully she ended it not long after that. I thought I could help that person with how much I loved them, but they were too abusive for me to be able to. If I can tell you something, as honorable as the will to help is. Don't waste it on people who don't want it or need it. She's fine and perfect within her knowledge, and the only way for people like that to change is by themselves. Work on yourself. Surround yourself with people who see you and appreciate you. People who are there for you. Those are the ones worth helping, because they will get your back too. He got a little too punchy in my face. I didn't like that. Sometimes people just want different things. Exactly. I don't want to be punched in the face, and he wanted to punch me in the face. Alas, we just couldn't find middle ground. He was the first person I really fell in love with. He was an only dad, and I loved being mom. Loved being wanted and needed. I never thought I could fall in love, or that anyone would love me. Then it got more controlling, emotionally abusive, and I started to feel used for my love of his son and my money. He cheated openly and told me no one would ever love me. When he told his son that he, the son, was the reason the fiancé and I were rocky. That broke something in me. I could deal with him breaking me, but damaging his son because he was trying to hurt me was too much. A month after we separated, he was married to someone else. A month. God, I'm really glad you dodged that bullet. I hope his son is doing okay. Thank you. Me too. That next marriage he had annulled. She was crazy, and now he's on to the next, or maybe the next after that. The son is doing well and actually reached out a couple years ago. He's an adult now, and seems to have kept some of the sweetness he had as a young man, even in the face of so much adversity. It all started when another man's D fell into my fiance's vagina. By accident, of course. Banana peels everywhere. Who left all these banana peels and dicks laying everywhere? It's like apes went buck wild in an adult toy store. I was never his number one. He didn't contribute at an adult level. The spark had long gone out. I don't think he possesses the depth I need. We ended things mutually, and we actually still speak. I feel relief every day that we did not get married. To be fair, I never wanted to get married in the first place, but it was important to him. Also, I went into the relationship very honest about never wanting to have children. He started to change his mind. That's not something you compromise on. I don't think he has the capacity to be a good and thoughtful and present father, but it's not my call. If he wants a child, he should have one with someone who also wants one. He started calling me names, and when I told him he was being hurtful, he said what he was saying was the truth, and I was just oversensitive. Made my son cry. Started saying he was rude and disrespectful, and everybody thought so. I asked everybody. Nobody thought so. Filed for bankruptcy because his mother told him it was the best thing to do, even when I begged him not to. He is a narcissist. I do not want that for me or my son. Bye. Jesus, that last part LMAO. My ex-mother-in-law suggested, when I mentioned I was struggling to pay the bills because of my motorcycle loan, that I just stop paying the creditor. It will buff eventually and drop off my credit years later. I laughed because I thought she was joking, that this was the best course of action. This is kind of where I finally started to notice my ex would just run away from her problems when things got tough. Wonder where she learned to do that. His mom is a manipulator, and I can see why he had to become the way he did. But don't bring that to me and my child.